Can I just say,
Yeah.
steadiest hand in the West with this handycam shit.
Really?
Yeah, fuck me. Man, I feel jittery, but my hands are solid.
If you don't speak for yourself, Man, I don't know how to say phrases properly. But yeah, after today's episode with Chris Norman from HUMMTech, shouts out, double M in the name, I've decided to try out my own brain-computer interface wearable technology. That's a mouthful. Yeah, so this is what I've got. I think I can feel it doing something. What do you think?
I think we'll leave it to the HUMMTech boys.
How so?
They seem to have it under control.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't... Wait, cut!
Holy shit. All right, Chris Norman.
Cool.
In the studio.
How's it going, guys?
Yes, dude.
Yeah, good.
On pod.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what's been going on lately? Like, you're pretty flat out.
I am. I think I've been busy for the last 5 years. Always busy.
That's good. 5 years is a good scope. I think that covers pretty much everything I want to get into.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now for me, the things that are keeping me busy is my startup company. So I'm co-founder of a company called HUMMTechnologies here in Perth.
Shouts out.
Yeah, shout out, check us out. And so that's taking up most of my time right now.
Yeah.
It's last year I was I started the startup company while I was still studying, while I was also running an events business, while I was doing 4 or 5
Which
other
was
things. Summit, yeah. So we were doing some events in nightclubs, which is a whole other story. So
we'll get into that.
Yeah. So the startup company though is now I've basically dropped everything else, or I've graduated uni, wrapped up doing the events in the nightclub stuff and focusing 100% on this project. So it's a tech company. It's a neurotechnology company, which means so we're building technology which interfaces with the human brain.
Sweet. Awesome. Okay, we'll delve deep into that soon, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, so you studied mechatronic engineering.
That's right.
At Curtin.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's all about robotics. It's all about, it's the crossover between traditional mechanical engineering, which is very much about machines and engines and moving things, and what you might see high school physics with your dynamics, but even more so.
Yeah, that's what I would think of when I think of engineering.
Yeah, absolutely right. And then between that and then electronics and electrical and a bit of computer science, and it's a big kind of a crossover. And when you learn it at university, you're kind of a little bit of an odd one out because you take a bit of the course doing the dynamics stuff and the physics stuff, and then you take a bit of the computer science, but you don't do enough of it. So you're kind of trying to do 3 or 4 different degrees, a little bit of everything all at once.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's awesome. I loved it. And I right now with Hum, I am more of a software developer right now. So I don't actually utilize everything that I've learnt, but it was awesome to study because I think that just to be totally honest, doing any one of the things by themselves would have just totally bored me.
Yeah.
It's good to keep it interesting and to keep challenging yourself.
Yeah, to spread yourself out. Yeah. It's lucky that anything you got from uni you still use, because for a lot of people that don't use any of their degree.
Honestly, I felt that once this is probably a very well-known quote, but I think it was quoted to me by the person who was running the degree, or my supervisor during my thesis in my bachelor. It's that you go to uni and you do all the study is just basically learning how to learn, and even in high school and everything, it's just you learn, and then by the end of it you're okay, well, don't use anything that you've actually learnt there,
Yeah.
but at least you can, maybe do an all-nighter and then go and pick up something new.
You learn efficiency.
Yeah, right.
So your thesis was looking at craters on Mars, was that
Yes,
right?
that's right. That's right. So I was, we have, it's taking me back a little bit to go and look at it all. But yeah, so the reason why we're interested in craters on other planets is it actually helps us to decode the geology. Mm-hmm. So the surfaces on planets, as you have like volcanic activity or may have been water flows or particular things. I'm not a geology major or anything, so I'm not too sure about exactly what causes the events. I was focusing on the actual looking at the craters themselves, but these surfacing events, they change. You can use the craters to determine the age of the surfaces afterwards. And the reason why that's so interesting is because we have some meteorites that we know have come from Mars here on Earth, and we can work out how old they are with like carbon dating techniques. And if we could figure out particular places on Mars that kind of match that age, then maybe you could figure out, and if it was a big crater, actually maybe ejected that particular meteorite, and we could be, when we sample that meteorite that's here on Earth, we actually know exactly where it comes from, and we're kind of studying that place on Mars without even needing to be there.
Wow, that makes perfect sense actually.
Yeah.
So the problem though is that there's a lot of craters on Mars. There's like just millions and millions and millions. To count and to count them all by hand takes a very long time. Some people have done it. One person categorized and counted 300,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Is that does Earth get hit by that many, or we're a bit more protected?
We are a bit more protected because of our atmosphere. Yeah. So because of the lack of the atmosphere on Mars, that's why it's just absolutely just peppered with craters.
Takes it.
Yeah, right.
And so we have powerful computers now though that can detect things, and we have AI that can go and like look for things in images and go and like detect them for us, so that we don't have to do it all by hand. So the year project that I was working on was kind of using the 300,000 craters, which this guy had counted by hand, and using that to train a computer to go and count them and pick it up by itself.
Yeah, okay.
And the results were pretty good actually. So the computers are actually really good at finding these things, and the craters themselves, they all look pretty similar. So we, by the end of it, had kind of a bit of a proof of concept of this algorithm. This is not something that's brand new either. There's a whole spade of research papers that have been looking at these algorithms, the crater detection algorithms, for maybe 10 years.
Yeah.
But this was using some newer AI techniques. And so I worked on that for a while, and now it's going to be, it was actually awesome. We had, when I finished up with that, Curtin was very keen for me to do a PhD and to continue research on that. Yeah, which was really flattering to be asked to keep pushing forward on the project that I'd worked on.
Yeah.
I decided against that though, because I felt that almost selfishly that I would probably be getting more out of doing a startup company instead.
Yeah.
But it ended up being, we're all kind of working out quite well in the end, because we had some awesome people from some of the other researchers from Curtin took up the project, and they did it like twice as fast as I did, and they made it work better than I did. And so now I think we're expecting some papers and stuff to come out, and we're hopefully like towards the end of this year, like get some journal articles or conference papers or something.
Sweet, yeah.
Yeah, which is, really cool.
Where would that be published? Do you know where people can see that?
Yeah, I think it's PSIDA, CIDA is a place to go to that I think we're looking at. And there is, that's the one that I remember off the top of my head. But probably, I think it's, actually, I just can't remember.
That's all right. We can find it out.
We have a Google alert for
Good. Yeah.
Crater algorithms.
On Google Scholar or something.
Yeah.
I might be completely wrong about this, but it was fascinating, and I run it past you and see if it's right. But with craters, apparently when a meteorite strikes a planet, more often than not, it strikes at such a velocity that the craters are created circular
Yes.
because of the force.
Yes.
So that's pretty much true across the board then, unless it strikes at such a slim angle where it sort of like breaks apart along the surface of the planet.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So generally from all of the, again, I wasn't ever taught about them in classes or anything. It more just like looking at lots and lots and lots of images. And these are all, and the images, by the way, they're all satellite images of some of the satellites that we have orbiting Mars, which are publicly available and anyone can download them, which is awesome for this kind of research. Generally they're all very circular. They all follow the same kind of pattern. Some of them are really interesting because you'll have a crater, a meteorite hit the surface, and then that will cause secondary craters because you have like it hits it so hard that you get kind of like a ejector pattern. So like kind of like splashes out. And
Sort of like shrapnel.
yeah, I guess you describe it like that. Yeah. And I'm pretty confident that the computer algorithms that we can actually get it to a stage where we could be able to figure out and maybe categorize these kind of ones. So we could like the computer could tell us, okay, could we even maybe estimate how fast the meteorite was impacting or what type of crater it is, just automatically with an algorithm.
Well, okay. And are we able to work out based on the shrapnel rather as well, where like what angle the meteorite came in from, and then possibly work out where in space it originated? Or
I think so.
Are these things that they're able to work out?
I think so. I haven't done a whole lot of reading into where you can estimate things. I do know that there's a really interesting project also coming out of Curtin Uni, which is looking at kind of from a different angle and very literally from a different angle, looking at cameras that are on Earth angled up into the sky. And the purpose of this project is they're looking at meteorites, so big streaks of white light going through the sky, and these algorithms are detecting they're estimating the trajectory of the meteorite and predicting where it's going to land in WA. So they have these cameras out in the middle of WA. They've got these big camera arrays. I think that there's quite a few of them, and they detect automatically when there's a meteorite. I think to my knowledge they're just regular DSLRs. There's not anything like, they're pretty cheap little setups.
Yeah.
And they detect as the crater comes down, and they'll estimate, they say, okay, is it going to be approximately this GPS coordinates? And then the team of researchers out from Curtin will go and drive and actually go and pick them up. And that's been successful. I think they've found quite a few now.
Awesome.
which is really cool when you're thinking of searching such a big, huge area. Yeah. And it really is like a needle in a haystack kind of problem.
Yeah. Holy shit.
It's a beautiful sight as well. Of seeing them in the night sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. We watched, what was it, the Orionids meteor shower?
Yeah.
Late last year, I think it was.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Wasn't even great visibility, but we still saw a few.
Saw some crackers, man.
Yeah.
Just down the Perth Hills.
Yeah. Probably not as many as you'd see in the Kimberley or something.
Yeah.
With no light pollution whatsoever.
Yeah. It probably is the worst part about living in the city, I think, is all of the light pollution. And I don't think I've ever really looked up in the night sky properly for years and years.
Yeah. That's one thing I always try to do regularly. It's kind of like a meditative thing for me. It's just I just like to look up at the stars and just try and take myself out of the stress of everyday life and whatever's going on. And it's so easy. It just lulls you into that state very quickly.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Have you been to any kind of planetarium or anything like that?
I want to go to the Perth Observatory.
Yeah.
We'll check it out.
We were going to go up to Gingin.
Yeah, they've got the Gravity Discovery Center out there, I think. Yeah.
We didn't do that eventually.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't remember why. We just didn't do it.
That would have been good. So seeing as we're on the topic of Mars and meteorites and all sorts of things like that, it's probably a good time to talk about the internship that you had while you're at Curtin, because that's pretty crazy.
Yes.
That really is
It's I'm wearing the jumper for it right now. So
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough. This was in 2016 for 6-7 months. I was selected as an intern with NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So it's a research center which is in Pasadena in California, so really close to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And there were two of us that went from Curtin, myself and another guy who was studying physics and electronics engineering. As a double major. And I went over there for 6 months and built fold-up origami robots that were designed to drive on the surface of Mars.
Yeah.
Which, even saying it now, is insane. It's hard to believe.
When you said fold-up origami, I was like, that doesn't sound quite scientific, but robots.
Yeah.
So what are they made out of?
They're made out of circuit boards, and the circuit boards themselves, it's a technology called rigid flex. So this is not totally groundbreaking. It's actually used in consumer electronics. I think for quite a while, even in your cell phone.
Sort of like I don't know what material, but it sort of folds around. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So these, if you're designing a really small device, so like a phone or something else where you've got really, really constraints, a lot of constraints on where you can put your electronics and where your chips and your components can go, this technique can help you solve that problem. So you've got your rigid circuit boards, and then they're joined together by flexible. And I'm not too sure of the material itself, but you can go and look it up online about the technology. But we were using that, so it was a mix of that, and then they had some material on the outside to help protect the insides from like dust and dirt when it was on the surface. And that was all just like joined together all as one thing. So it would be printed out, and it was kind of like a net that you go and like fold up and put together, and then it was a robot that would drive around. So
that's impressive.
Very, very cool.
So that was the Puffer project?
Yes, that's right.
Which is what pop up flat folding
Explorer robot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. And so a big part of your internship there, and you were doing, I believe, 80 hours across 9 days or something like that.
Yeah.
So you get like a day off.
Yeah.
And then what kind of things did you go and do, if we just sort of deviate away from the
For sure.
NASA side of it? You went to explore around LA and things like that?
I did. It was, that was probably one of my favorite parts about, and when I look back on it now, like the thing that I remember like the fondest is having that little bit of extra time. And so I was over during the American summer, which is only about 10 weeks or so. There's lots and lots and lots of American interns that are there as well. Yeah. For the rest of the part, there's not so many, but there's enough that you kind of meet a few people from around the world, because there's a lot of people coming from Europe, me from Australia. And then we get these 3-day weekends, and I would talk to all these people, and it would just be, everyone's here for the same reason, just to go and have experiences and explore and go and do new things. So we would go and we'd go snowboarding for a weekend. We'd go hiking. The mountains around California are absolutely beautiful. It's a whole different experience compared to bushwalking is amazing here in WA. Yeah. But there's something about being able to go up somewhere and having views where everything is not totally flat. Yeah. So one of my probably the favorite weekend trip was we just drive 2 hours out and we go snowboarding, and only 2 hours away, which is here in Perth, it's you can't do that. Yeah. So really cool to go up to the snow just in a day.
I mean, California is the birthplace of outdoor culture, hiking and rock climbing, Yosemite. It's just
definitely
pristine.
Yeah. I found that more than anything, I took over a small little camera with me, and it was, I've never been into photography massively. I would never call myself a photographer or anything, but taking that out with me and kind of using that as an excuse to go hiking or to go and see the outdoors and take a photo or try and get up to that like highest spot that we could get to, just because we think it'd make a nice photo. Was really, really fun.
Whoa. What a time. What a time.
I mean, outdoor, like landscape photography also, I think was born in California as well, like in Yosemite again, Ansel Adams. I mean, yeah, because it's just
beautiful landscapes.
Too beautiful to pass up.
Yeah.
Like, I want to keep this forever.
Yeah. You take, I went to Sequoia, which is another national park. Up around, I think on the way to Yosemite, if my geography is right. And I'd take the camera out and like it was just spring, so all the snow was just starting to melt, and it was sunset, and anywhere that you pointed the camera, it kind of like it looked like it come out of a magazine or like a desktop wallpaper that you get a laptop and you'd open it up and you'd see that. So yeah, it was amazing. Just a real testament to the landscape.
Did you go to Joshua Tree at all?
I didn't. I didn't. I've heard really good things, and I would love to go and visit.
Yeah. I've been there. It's like it is like desert, but it's got a hippie vibe to it. It's like it's a bit more. It's a little less harsh. Yeah. All those classic cactuses and dry mountains and stuff. It's like a movie.
For sure.
Damn. Yeah, these are areas I definitely want to visit. I've always had in my head like this idea of doing a trip, like getting a wicked camper from like Vancouver, like you did this sort of thing, and then driving all the way down across the west coast to like LA and stuff like that.
For sure.
Just taking it all in.
For sure.
Be the best.
Yeah. But if you go to San Francisco with a van, do a lot of preparation though, because it's hard to find parking and like trying to keep it somewhere.
Of course.
Yeah. We like got into San Francisco, and the first night we hadn't planned any accommodation. Yeah. Because we were just winging the whole thing. And so we couldn't find anywhere. So we decided to just park around the corner from the Golden Gate Bridge. So there's like the bridge and there's like the sort of like the land. We sort of parked around the corner from it, like in view. That was definitely illegal, I think. I don't think you're allowed to do that.
But what a view to wake up to.
Yeah. Oh, far out. Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, and the bay on the left. And then, fuck. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, I think I was, I've just come back from San Francisco actually, and the thing that if, and anybody listening, if you get a chance to go and watch and just experience, I think we spent a good 20 minutes or 30 minutes we're standing on the bridge, on the Golden Gate Bridge, maybe about halfway across. I've never been totally across the bridge. I've been twice now, and we get halfway and then we think, well, if we go all the way, we're going to have to go and get an Uber back or go and ride back. I think the first time we were on bikes and we're like, okay, we've been cycling for like 5 hours now. It's time to go back. Yeah. But we're sitting there halfway and there's people surfing underneath the bridge. So
oh, really?
Yeah, and I think that it's nearly on any given day, I think that you'll find people there. And it's really interesting to watch because there's a bit of an element of danger. There's all of these rocks that are there. I think there's people wearing helmets, but they seem like they're having a lot of fun. And it's just like you see those people there when you look directly down, and then you look up and you see the rest of the city behind it. It's a really nice view.
Whoa. Wow, surfing there. How do the waves? Is it because of rocks there under the water?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. The waves, they weren't huge by any means. Yeah. I'm very un-Australian in that I don't surf.
No, neither do I. It's terrifying.
Yeah. So I can't tell from experience that it would have been good or that it would have been bad. I mean, it looked like they were having fun though.
There's definitely got to be a bit of a novelty to it.
Absolutely.
I surfed under the Golden Gate Bridge.
For sure.
I still to this day haven't paid the toll for the bridge.
Oh, really?
Because I think it's just like they read the license plate. Yeah. So you don't have to actually stop and pay someone. Yep. You have to just pay after, and we just forgot about it.
Maybe gone to the hire company or something.
To the van company.
Yeah.
They never mentioned it. So shouts out. No, I won't shout them out.
Don't find me.
I've never been to San Francisco. This was all.
It's a dream.
This is hypothetical.
Yeah.
Speaking of San Fran, I want to get into a bit of more intensely into this. What do you call it? the actual product, what would be the term for the...
Yeah, wearable.
Yeah, for the wearable.
So we're talking HUMMTech now.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So we've been a company for just over 12 months now.
Yeah.
So founded last year, and we went through a business accelerator program here in Perth for 6 months. Yep. And the product that we're commercializing and that we're making is a wearable device that reads your brainwaves, so looks at what's going on inside your head, and also stimulates your brain using a technology called TACS. So that's been it's transcranial AC current stimulation.
So just under the skull.
It's actually you wear it above your skull, so it's like
so
non-invasive.
Sorry, I mean like the electricity goes sort of under the skull.
Yeah. And that so with the intention of basically helping people to think better. So a lot of our work with the company is motivated by the fact that we think that in the future there's going to be some really big problems that are going to talk like big vision, and kind of like our the thing that really drives us is that. So that, you know, we're experiencing things like climate change, and there's politics, and there's all of these really big thought problems that potentially the limiting factor here is maybe the human brain. And on top of that, we also have artificial intelligence and computers, which are becoming increasingly more powerful. And yet our human brains stay the same. Yeah. So it almost makes sense that the next step in our evolution is to be able to improve how we think.
Yep.
And that's what we're trying to do with our company. We're not alone as well. The space is pretty small right now, but there are a few other players. And there's like a lot more companies. Like we're pretty small, but there's companies out there like Facebook, and Elon Musk is working on a project similar to this.
I've heard of Halo Neuroscience.
Right.
I've heard of that one as well. They've got like the headphones.
Yeah. They're really cool. We've got one of their devices, and their proposal is that they're looking at, so the region of the brain that they're stimulating is the motor cortex, which is up on the top here. So it's a pair of headphones which have these extra pads built in. And you soak the pads in water, and they do electrical stimulation as well. And they've and Halo have shown they've done a lot of studies, and they've shown that it is actually helps encourage neuroplasticity when you're training skills, and it's mainly related to, and the main improvements that they've seen have been in like people playing musical instruments, people running, people jumping, people lifting weights, anything to do that where it's kind of like you call it maybe muscle memory. They've seen improvements that have been because people have been wearing this device.
So functional plasticity?
Neuroplasticity, yeah.
Yeah, so like is it having any lasting effects? Like, or is it just improving the efficiency of the brain while you're wearing it?
I think you can think of it as similar to hacking training. So making your training sessions more effective with a product like that. Yep. So you still have to do the work. It's not like you chill out and then you go and wear this kind of device that stimulates your brain, and then suddenly you take it off and you're like going to be able to play, I don't know, any Mozart song on the piano or whatever. You still have to work a lot, but it's maybe, and the improvement that you're getting is small. So it's not like a 10x improvement. It's maybe like a 2% improvement or 3%, but there's people out there who will pay for that improvement, and people, especially they're looking at now, I think they really became quite well featured and prominent, and some of the first people that were using the product like publicly were like Olympic athletes. So it's people like performing at the elite is what they're looking at.
Every percentage is like so important.
Yeah. So with Hum, we're looking at spaces where we can be improving by 1% to 2%, and then that performance improvement is something which is really valuable to people, and that's why we're looking at the eSports space.
Yeah.
So looking at people who play. We're working with people who play video games competitively. And this is it. If you don't, when you take just a cursory look at it and just from a top level, it sounds kind of ridiculous, right? Like people getting paid $1 million a year and they're just playing a computer game and where's the skill in that and what's involved with that. But it's actually, when you look more deeper at what is going on, these are, we call them cognitive athletes because they're using their brain and pushing it to the limit.
Yeah. No, I think it's the same as sport, I'd say. Like, I don't have any stigma about eSports because, I mean, you look at sports and you're like, oh, what's the point of that? But there's a whole economy based around it.
Exactly.
And it's a pastime.
Exactly.
But yeah, eSports is pretty much just the same.
Yeah. And you're seeing sports teams now buying up eSports teams because they're looking to diversify, which is really interesting.
AFL actually, it's like sponsoring and like setting up League of Legends events, which is like, whoa.
Yeah. So, you know, soon we're going to get to, and this is all because the generation now, everyone's playing Fortnite, everyone's watching Twitch.
Fork knife.
And soon it's going to be like, and even like with Fortnite as a game, they just like announced the company that made the game has put $100 million into turning that into something that can be played more competitively. So putting tournaments and that kind of thing together. And then everyone's going to be, soon it's like, you know, play AFL growing up. Well, you've played these games growing up and now you can watch the pros play just like you watch traditional sport.
I can't imagine.
It's wild.
How fast people can make forts while wearing a wearable. I don't think I'll be able to keep up, man. Honestly.
I've had a go at the game a couple of times and like I'm pretty sorry. I think we need our product to be finished so I can get a bit of an increase.
I don't have the dexterity anymore. I'm an old man now. I don't have from here down to my fingers. It doesn't work.
Yeah. It's really interesting, right? Because these players, the lifespan of the players that are playing at the top level, because of exactly what you're saying, like with the hand-eye coordination and the motor skills, and the players are only good up until they're retiring around like 22 years old, and they're good from like maybe 17 until 17,
so it's like 22. Gymnasts in that sense. They retire at 20. Wow.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're interested in with Hum is the kind of like the more sports aspect to it and how we can be improving the training process and improving and understanding the brain to avoid this kind of like you're only good for like 1 year and then you like can't play at your best anymore.
Yeah. Have you guys thought about how this is like a safe alternative to chemical enhancement, like using Adderall and stuff? Because I know that's a huge thing.
For sure.
Caffeine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Low dose electricity instead of like
so
taking a low dose amphetamine.
Absolutely. So granted, so with the technology, it is fairly new. So there's been about 20 years worth of research into the particular type of stimulation. However, it still remains to be seen the long-term effects, and we're still looking and working with researchers in the space who are. We're trying to look at what happens if you're wearing this kind of technology every single day for years. The sample size on the studies have all been quite small. So one of the biggest things that maybe might make me nervous about it is that like no one's done this before. So it's all quite new. However, in all of the 20 years worth of study, there's been no adverse side effects. So comparing that to like chemical enhancement or other means, it seems like it's a step towards step towards the future.
Yeah.
Even in terms of treating depression and treating there's numerous neurodegenerative diseases which can be treated with stimulation in a way which is actually proven to have less side effects than taking some of the drugs for it. And there's been some other companies, especially in the US, that have been having really good success, and they've got devices approved so you can get a prescription, but it's not for a pill. Yeah. It's not for like a chemical that you're going to take. It's actually to go and wear a device.
I've heard of stuff like that, because I guess the concept is like some people just, I guess, have a lower power level in their brain, to put it really simply.
Sure.
Because of whatever reason. But
and it's that different things work for different people. So, and especially with this kind of technology, some people respond really well to it. And there's been studies that shown that some people just don't respond at all. And it's all to do with the particular way that you tune the frequencies and the way that you tune it to match your brain. So we are thinking that by measuring what's going on inside your brain, we can actually help to quantify like whether or not this is going to help you and what way, like where you should wear the device, what settings you should use that actually make you perform at your best.
Yeah.
So actually trying to put a number behind it in the same way that you might wear a Fitbit to go and track, you know, how many steps you do per day. This is just being for your brain.
Yeah. Is it true that this is where a lot of the applications are at the moment for people with like neurodegenerative diseases and things like that, because of the speed at which we can get brain-computer interfaces to operate? Is that generally how it's sort of working? We're trying to build up to the point where we could take a perfectly healthy human being and then optimize them. Like I read something about how at the moment, I think the speed of a brain-computer interface is like 5 to 25 bits per minute or something like that. And then I don't know if this sort of leads into like signal analysis and stuff like that, about trying to sort of, which I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
But is it more about trying to isolate what you're measuring? Like it maybe in terms of the product that you guys are working on, it's trying to isolate the brain activity that you guys are trying to focus on.
Absolutely.
And things like that. Is that a big part as well of the development of this product?
Well, I think that for the first point about like trying to improve like normal or healthy people as opposed to people who have diseases or have something not working properly, is because some of up to now a lot of these devices have been implanted or like invasive surgical procedures used to actually get a better signal. Your skull is actually, believe it or not, very, very bad. It's a bit of a nightmare to try and read your brain from outside of your head. It's a lot easier to do it when you're inside the skull because the skull just like totally filters out a lot of the activity. So up to this point, it's been a lot of implants that will get a good enough signal to actually go and read some sort of thoughts, and in particular, it's the example that I probably look at is there was a lady who was she was paraplegic. I think she was quadriplegic, and she had an implant which was controlling a robotic arm by thought.
Yeah. And
she could actually go and like hold a coffee cup and like go and shake somebody's hand with the arm. This was a few years ago as well. So this is not even the
recent,
most. Yeah. But then it raises the question. Okay, well, with the current state of the technology is that like the invasive procedures are the only viable way to get a good enough signal, then there's fairly unlikely that you'll go down and get brain surgery just so you can control your lights with your thought or like it was still I think a fair way off from that, which is why the non-invasive stuff, like the stuff that you can just put on and wear, is really interesting for helping people who don't have like neurodegenerative diseases.
So for people that are listening that probably want to understand a bit more about the product, and I might just take a stab at how I think it works.
For sure.
But is it essentially, and there's actually another thing I want to clarify in this though, but it is essentially a two-state brain-computer interface that works similar to an encephalogram that records your brain activity.
Yeah.
That's the input.
Yeah.
And then it passes through a translation algorithm.
Yeah.
And then that device then generates outputs, which is the device then stimulating the brain.
That's right.
And would that be described as like a closed loop system?
Yes.
Okay. And it's a non-invasive product that you wear around your head.
That's right.
So it's effectively monitoring for any kind of disparities in the measurements that it's taking. And then is like essentially like a positive feedback. It's trying to like bring that back to a sort of standard level that it wants, and then it sort of closes it off again.
Yeah. And so the idea that with the inputs into the system, so being your brainwaves, that we can we can recognize particular patterns, and it's not so high resolution. The electroencephalogram, the EEG, can't tell you exactly what you're thinking, but we can recognize whether or not you're like fatigued or alert, or whether you're concentrating, or whether you're distracted.
Of thought,
not the exact thought. Absolutely, it's more. And when we think about to go back to the robotic hand example, it's like if you told the person to imagine like moving their arm forwards lots and lots and lots of times, then the computer could go and recognize what that pattern looks like, as opposed to them thinking about other things. We've got that being the input into the system, and then we have the outputs of the system being the electrical stimulation, and obviously in between connecting them is the algorithms that we design, which helps to drive the whole thing and cause the improvement. And we've been testing so far with the outputs, and we've shown which is very similar to just through internal testing, similar to the literature that's out there in the electrical stimulation space, about a 15% improvement in visual working memory. So that's like when you're kind of like similar to like looking at things on a computer screen and being asked to like recall them backwards, or something where you kind of like have to manipulate that information. So 15%, again, it's not like a 10x improvement. It's not something that's totally game changing, but it's more about the like, okay, well, we think about this 15%, how could that help these competitive athletes train better? And their visual working memory is something that's really interesting for us with eSports, because you'll be look at these players playing a game like League of Legends, and there's so much that they're taking in at once. If you look at their eyes, as if they're ever, if you watch people of videos of people with eye trackers, they'll be looking at so many different things on the screen and just processing the information so quickly. And we can help them improve the speed at which they can be working at. So kind of like increasing your RAM, I guess.
I feel like it is game changing, because we have our own limits, don't we? Biologically, like what you're talking about with your big mission.
Yeah. And how can we overcome that?
Natural human evolution can only go so fast, but we have so much happening right now that we aren't really evolved to handle.
Absolutely.
So much stimulation. And with so many issues that we have to solve pretty quickly. That a bit of helping hand from technology is
for sure
useful.
I think it raises a lot of ethical questions as well, and like philosophical questions about, okay, well, what if we could plug our brains into the internet and we could have direct communication with everything, or we all became just suddenly incredibly smart because we could go and Google anything instantly. How does that change things?
Because I guess you can have two sides. You can say, oh, we're humans and this technology is something other and we have to be cautious of it. Or you could say this technology is coming from us inside out.
Absolutely.
We think of it in our heads and we bring it, manifest it outside. So it's kind of like we actually are evolving alongside
for sure
technology. So
it's an interesting viewpoint for sure.
That's that latter
angle
theory is how I kind of think of it. So I'm all for enhancement.
So the wizard hat, I've heard this come up before. Have you heard of the wizard hat?
What's the wizard hat?
I think that ties in with Neuralink, which is, and I like to say that they're operating in the same space as you rather than you're operating in the same space as them, which is actually born of a comment that I think Ian, your CEO, made at a pitch night, which was very cheeky. And he had a panel of, I don't know, venture capitalists or some investors, and they lapped it up. So that was awesome. But this term, the wizard hat, which I think is like, you've got yourself and other companies that are working in the biotech space that are coming at this problem from different angles and working in similar areas. And the wizard hat, I guess, is like the final, not really final, because I think we're always going to keep progressing, but it's like a foreseeable like ceiling almost to like a product that's going to like plug us into the internet and allow direct communication. And I read your page, HUMMTech, on Facebook posted a PDF document, which was a massive document about the evolution of like neuroscience and how we communicated like internally, and then we started talking outwards and stuff like that. It really switched my thinking onto the idea of how language is just a terrible filter. Like you take an idea in your head and you have to like understand it and conceptualize it for yourself, and then you have to filter it into language, which is a very, very poor filter, as I said. And then you talk to someone, then they take those words, then they pass it through a filter into their mind to conceptualize it, and it's like, how much is lost in translation?
Absolutely.
It's a pretty rudimentary tool at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've got a long way to go.
So I think that this kind of technology is going to be massive for us in the way that, you know, writing was, and then language, or language rather than writing, that if we could communicate directly to people, like there would be the processing speed in and of itself would be incredible, and the ability to share direct thoughts would just be like...
Absolutely.
And your imagination runs wild then. Like even if you think of a scenario where someone might be sitting down with a psychologist, like someone who's trained to understand emotions and be able to work through people's issues, if they could directly communicate with their patient and really feel the person's thoughts and emotions, and with their training as well, they would be able to give them significantly more help than having this sort of stumbly stop-start conversation. It's very primitive, really, when you get to...
It would probably... Something like that you're talking about would probably change culture entirely.
Yeah.
Probably become a global culture, which I think would be for the better. Like there wouldn't be these language barriers, cultural barriers, stuff like that.
Yeah. And this is a big part of, I think, why I fanboy out so hard about HUMMTech, is because I see what you guys are doing, and I can see where the applications can be in the future and where it's all going towards. So that's something I wanted to ask you as well, is like, where do you guys see yourself going? Like if everything works out fine, you keep progressing as you are, you get your first product out there, you generate a bit of cash flow, and then you're allowed to sort of pour more money into research and development, expand, stuff like that. Like let your imagination run wild for a bit. What kind of products do you want to sort of play around with?
Yeah, I think that it's really what we're doing right now is we're trying to tackle we're trying to move really quickly and tackle low-hanging fruit. So we're looking at particularly the drive towards eSports and the drive towards places where we can have a win pretty quickly, and we can use that to go and raise some more money.
Springboard you into another.
Yeah, and being able to have more flexibility and more budgets and be able to do more deeper research and development into, and it will probably be in that kind of space. I think that long-term where we want to be is building tools which help people to learn faster.
Yeah.
So being able to, as we said before, like going to uni, it's just teaching you how to learn, right? But are there ways which we can actually speed that up? Like what if you could read a whole book really, really quickly and remember more of the information? Or what if you could go and take a course online and then take that maybe like 5 times faster than you would otherwise because of neurotechnology tools that can help optimize how you learn. So that's, I think, a space where, in fact, where we started as a company looking into that space before anything else. Yeah, and I think it's still where we would like to be. Obviously, the wizard hat and direct brain communication and interfacing and understanding and being able to read thoughts and that kind of thing is something which is absolutely fascinating and definitely part of the vision. And we're really, I think, excited more than anything to be in the same space as people who are working on that problem right now. Whereas we're kind of like, we're taking a bit of a kind of a trying to take the easy road, I guess, for a little while and not be looking at the difficult problems. But yeah, I think absolutely, like it'd be amazing to have enough money to put a team together to work on those kinds of projects. Yeah.
So the way that you're sort of orientating yourself to attack eSports, which you guys have determined is going to be quite prosperous for you and a really great place to put your product out, that in turn is as much as that is a short-term decision, that's also with long-term thinking. Like you guys want to be able to set yourself up to tackle some of these big problems and things.
It's like, you know, if you're from a cognitive perspective and from looking at the brain perspective, somebody who's flying a plane in a video game is very similar to somebody who's like flying a plane in real life. So a lot of the skills and learnings that we take from esports are actually translate quite well into non-esports activities, and we can still help people push the limits of their brain using the same systems and technology that we're building in this space.
Yeah. So I heard that you guys are also while you're also able to try and apply it into esports, you can look at also long haul truck drivers and people that have to stay focused for long periods of times.
Yeah.
Even like computer programmers and things like that.
For sure.
Oh, really? With the truck driving, that could also be a good alternative to what truck drivers do to stay awake. Binge no-dose, caffeine pills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or mother energy drinks.
Holy shit.
For sure. It's really interesting, those kind of industries being almost like, how long is it going to be be we have self-driving cars?
Autonomous cars.
I was about to say that, but what if then their jobs are taken by
Exactly.
So it wouldn't really matter then.
Yeah.
What kind of barriers do you think you guys might experience in the esports realm? Like, is there a possibility that people might start sort of saying, hey, hold on, this is performance enhancing.
Some of the old heads.
You know, we're going to start regulating this and, you know, have you guys sort of scoped that out a little bit, or we're not sure where that's going to go because the technology is sort of only really emerging now and making its way into esports?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely it's a risk, of course, and we've seen it with other technologies in other sports contexts, like in previous years.
Yeah.
There was, from a commercial point of view, though, like I think it was like a Nike swimsuit or something in particular that caused the technology was like the boost that it gave swimmers was like deemed like they banned it from the
because it was
Olympics,
too good. I remember, I think that was the Australian team. Maybe.
That's right. And then like when you look at and also with like shoes and with all those kind of things, anything which has been banned, you look at the sales of those devices afterwards, and I think that there's a whole market around it which they're not like everybody who wants to be a professional swimmer or is, you know, really really and like looking to get their lap time down. Will go out and buy that because they're not faced with any regulations. They're not doing it professionally. So there's still opportunities there. And I think that if it was to become regulated, it would probably be a testament to how effective that it was.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting space. It's something that we are looking at, but probably not overly worried.
Not too concerned. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. We'll get away from HUMMTech just for a little bit.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Pawsey Supercomputing.
Oh, yeah.
So am I correct in believing that you did some work there or you had some experience there?
I did, yeah.
I couldn't find anything online about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you want to sort of go into that a little bit?
For sure. Yeah. So this was an internship project. So this was while I was studying. What the story behind this, the backstory as to how I ended up involved in that project, we were with the crater detection algorithm that we were writing, we were looking at being able to use that on the supercomputer. And Curtin has a really good, my university has a really good relationship with the Pawsey Supercomputing Centre, which, by the way, I think that this fact is still correct, but is the largest supercomputer in the Southern Hemisphere, or the most powerful supercomputing centre, or at least it was at the time of my internship.
Yeah.
So we were looking at these algorithms. They were testing them on small areas, but if we were to try and scale it up to looking at the whole planet, well, you need a lot of computing power behind that, and you can't just do that on your desktop computer. That's hence the interest in how we could work with Pawsey to be able to run these huge algorithms.
Yeah.
And however, I ended up applying for the internship program with the intention of working on my own thesis project using that time. The logistics of it or the admin stuff didn't end up working out, but I ended up with a different project instead. So for the summer, halfway through my bachelor's thesis, I ended up just kind of not working on that so much and working on this supercomputer project instead. And the project was really interesting. It was using the power of the supercomputer to go and look at historical photos of Perth. So we have the State Library of Western Australia has this huge archive of photos that are donated by people, and a lot of them are old film scans, just like landmark photography. It might be people like kind of famous faces of who's who in WA at particular events. And they have this database filled with thousands and thousands and thousands of images. And we were looking at using the supercomputer to help match up images together of the same building. So potentially one photo of the building from one particular year, and then another photo of the same building from a different angle from maybe a different year, and try to actually uncover some links and try and add some value back onto the collection just by looking at the contents of the photos.
Whoa. Yeah, that's awesome.
So overall, it was fairly successful. I think I learned, it was the first time that I'd ever really done serious computer programming stuff. So I was definitely dropped in and pretty out of my depth. But I had some really good supervisors there, and we did find some interesting things. There was nothing we didn't uncover anything totally groundbreaking, but I think we did build some good systems that can go and look at these photos. And we were also interested in being able to take some of these historical photos and match them up. So we could maybe find 5 or 6 photos or as many as we can of the same building from different angles, and then try and turn that building into a 3D version of itself just based on the photos. Yeah.
That's awesome.
The technique is called photogrammetry, and it's being used I think fairly widely just to turn there's another project coming out of the same centre which is looking at, there's a shipwreck, the HMS Cormoran, which they've had a dive team down to go and film all around the outside of it, and they've actually used this Pawsey supercomputer to turn that into a big 3D model that you can actually go and explore yourself.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
online, sort of like a virtual tour. Sort of thing?
I think so. So if you look up the Sydney Cormoran project, you'll probably find some stuff, or at least some a couple of videos and fly arounds of it.
Oh wow!
Jeez. So while you were in LA doing Pasadena, doing your internship at NASA, you were inspired by a group called Brownies and Lemonade. Is that sort of the conception of Summit events over here?
Yeah. So the other thing that I had been doing, or amongst all of this stuff to keep me busy and to fill up even more of my time.
I was going to say, you've done a lot of things.
I'm a massive music fan. I've loved, and particularly electronic music. So I've ever since maybe 2008, 2009, that's been top of my playlist every single day. Listening to whatever. And I started DJing back when I was in high school, and that was awesome because when I was at university, I was DJing on the weekends, and that was how I basically didn't have a part-time job. I never worked in a cafe or anything because I'd just go and
that's awesome.
DJ one night a week instead.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, it worked really well around the classes because you'd never have to go and skip class to go and make a work shift or anything like that because you'd always be at night on the weekends. And then amongst all of that, while I was at uni, helped start a university club, just a student-run club to basically for DJing and for music and organising events and parties. So that was really fun. It was awesome because it was just so different to the engineering stuff that I was studying. And then so I would go to class, do all my maths and science and programming and looking at the dynamics and looking at robotics. And then straight after that, I would be going on Facebook and helping run a marketing campaign to sell more tickets to the party that we're planning. And everyone was just doing it for fun, basically. We weren't being paid, everyone volunteered, and we were just doing these events just because we wanted to and because we thought it was really cool. So then while I was over in LA, there was about 3 or 4 months where it's you're going to a new city, so you don't really know what's good, and I didn't know a lot of people over there either, and especially some of the a lot of the people that I met, they weren't huge music fans as much as me, which is okay. Maybe it's okay. They weren't my closest friends. But when I did find out about, so like I listened to a lot of music on SoundCloud, and a lot of, I don't know, you probably, I guess if you wanted to classify it as genre, like a lot of like future-based stuff, a lot of trap music, a lot of stuff which these producers were just making, and they were just releasing it on SoundCloud, and there was a lot of them, they were never on like labels, or they were just putting it out on groups of artists would kind of like come together, and I'd listen to all of that and find more artists, and it was really fun. And it took me about like 3 or 4 months to realize that a lot of people were actually, that I was listening to, were living in LA. And they were all like, these people maybe like they'd play like their first ever show, but I actually like knew about them and had been listening to them in Perth just because of the beauty of the internet.
Yeah.
So I was still 20, so I got myself a fake ID so I could go and go to these shows. And then went out, and it was, a lot of these people were playing at this event called Brownies and Lemonade, and these guys, they'd been doing parties for 5 years, I think it was, when I was over there. And they started actually pretty similar to me. I think that's why they were such an inspiration, was they started doing parties while they were at college. So they would just do like an event at somebody's house. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually these people, they graduated college and they just started working on these events full time. And they were doing one event every single week, and they were having some of the biggest names in music, in electronic music, would come down to these events just because they built it up and they had such good culture behind these parties. And so they would have Skrillex, or they would have like just names and names and names just come through because like they were really big fans of what the guys did.
The culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was down at these parties, and you'd never find out about like the lineup or like who was DJing. It was all just special guests like all night, and you go down, and then I would be like, oh, hold on, I've heard this song before. I know this guy. And it's because like I'd be listening to him on SoundCloud, but he'd be playing his first ever live performance, and there'd be like 2,000 people there as well. Like they were huge, so massive.
That sounds like the best kind of party where like, everyone there is like like-minded.
Yeah.
And going into it that the music is like unique and like curated to you probably. Because like you wouldn't just rock up there randomly and like, what kind of club is this?
Exactly.
Pay the $10 entry and get in.
Yeah. So, and then half of them, they were on like weeknights and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And they were all about,
it
was all about the music for them. Yeah.
Tuesday night.
Yeah, right. So that was a lot of fun, and it was a big inspiration coming back to Perth, and thinking about, so by that time that I was back here, I was still studying, so I was still at uni, and I was looking, I like had basically left the student club that I'd started to go over and to do the NASA thing. So when I was coming back, I was looking at ways which I could be to do the NASA thing,
Just
right?
do the NASA thing. I got to go work for NASA.
Yeah, it's for a little while. Okay. So when I came back, I was looking at ways to, like, I guess pursue the passion more than anything. And so I was still DJing on weekends, and I met a couple of guys that, or linked back up with a couple of mates from Perth that had been talking about doing like this particular kind of like event series, or like maybe like a night, booking out like a nightclub and then having a particular style of music. And I was chatting to these guys and I said, hold on, that sounds really similar to like these events that I was going to over in America.
Yeah.
And these events, they were like awesome, and I loved the music, and I loved everything about like just the amount of crowds that would draw to just that were there just to go and listen to these songs that I've been listening to from SoundCloud or from the internet. So we decided we'll do 1 or 2 like events at this small club in Perth.
Yeah.
And that was the first bit of it, and it was that led into starting that, and we called it Summit, and it was about a whole year of I think we did, I counted it up, it was maybe like 15 events or so. So we weren't full time on it. We weren't super serious about it. It was basically just a bit of fun and kind of like a passion project. And we'd do maybe like one event every month. And yeah, it was awesome experience. Like definitely looking back on it, it was really, really enjoyable, total different switch up from like doing uni, because we'd be like talking to DJs, we'd be talking to music producers, we'd be talking to their touring agents. It ended up, we started off like fairly small, and we just had like people from Perth, and then we started like, we were always a little bit ambitious with it. So we were looking to try and see, you know, who could we get to play it up at these parties. Australia is not like America, unfortunately, where like you don't have a whole heap of people, just like Skrillex doesn't just live in and go and drop into your party whenever he feels like or whatever. But we did start dealing with tour agents, and we had some people come through, and they would do the tour of Australia. So they play it at nightclubs like in every state. And then for a couple times, only a handful of times, we didn't progress it too far. Their stop in Perth would be with us at Summit. So there's a great story about I think the guy might get pissed off if I say it on air, so I might cut it out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay.
If you said their actual name, or
oh no.
You give it a code name.
maybe tell us after.
Yeah.
No, sweet. It's always good to have a little something that the audience don't get to see.
Yeah, you can tell us after, and I definitely won't secretly record it.
Oh man.
Yeah. Wow. So that's cool. So you strike me as someone that thrives when you're constantly stimulated and sort of chewing on something, I guess.
For sure. I think even now, having only one thing is it's great in a way. It's a little bit more relaxed and chilled out. But I think I always will have something going on the side, or always like need to be driven by 2 or 3 different things that I can kind of just like switch between to keep interested.
Yeah, interesting. And it's not like you're attacking multiple things to a superficial level. You're like sort of really getting into it. You're not half-assing anything.
Yeah, I like to think so anyway.
Yeah. What do you think, going more into an examination of the self now, what do you think motivates you? Like, what keeps you going? What keeps you operating at this kind of level? Because I think, there's definitely something to say about that, because some of the things you've done, it's like, I know a lot of people listening are probably thinking like, if that you know, they're trying to find their motivation and they're trying to figure out what they want to do, and then there's this guy who's done so many crazy things. Like, maybe could you share with us, what keeps you ticking over? For sure. Have you thought about that a lot, or?
A little bit, not as much as I should have. And I think that for everybody, there's always like more self-examination that you can do to better understand yourself and to better understand what drives you and what makes you tick, as you said. I think for me, it's always about so first of all, making sure that like anything that I get involved with or do is really interesting just to start with, that it's something which is a fairly big or a deep problem, or something that there's enough to go all in and to not half-ass it. Yeah. So that's in like what we're doing at HUMMS is a very complicated problem. I guess the things that I've worked on with Pawsey is like quite in-depth and technical, and even things with like Summit, it's quite complicated, because it's in a different way though. It's like how can you go and sell out at like a nightclub, and how can you go and get the right booking on the right DJ and do the right graphics and the right marketing campaign that people notice about the event, and they talk to it, they talk about it, and they'll bring their friends down and stuff. So that's definitely a prerequisite, and I think it's just been, for me, more than anything, about like trying to say yes to as many opportunities as possible, and trying to use everything to help drive and just try to make that form the stepping stone for the next thing that you'll do. People would tell me that like the first thing I'd go and mention to somebody, hey, like I've got this internship at NASA JPL, and they would say, oh, that's awesome. You're probably like, you're set now. Like you can go and get any like engineering job in Perth that you would like. Sure, yeah. And that's and to start with, it's really flattering to go and receive that kind of like compliment from people, to be thought of so highly, for sure. But then also it's like, well, yes, you could go and do that, and you could settle, and you could say, okay, you know, I just need to do this, and then that's it, and then I'm just going to get a regular engine like job, and just going to get that. But my mindset has always been, okay, well, like, I don't want to have peaked when I'm be at the peak of my career working at NASA in like the third year of my uni. So I need to keep pushing forward so that I actually that's just a stepping stone climbing up.
I feel like what ties all of your interests together, tell me if this is a stretch or not, but I feel like between the HUMMTech stuff and all the other internships and the music stuff, there's an element of high level, like aesthetic involvement or like flow state that seems to tie all these together. Like you were just saying that the HUMMTech is such a challenging thing. It's like, do you feel like sometimes it's just beyond your capability constantly? That's what it seems like what you're searching for, which I guess is what the fundamental flow state, like just trying to be super engaged in this high level thing that's like slightly out of your reach.
Yeah.
Enough of a challenge to like constantly go for it.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that recently what has been really motivating me is, and been extremely rewarding, is continue to put myself in positions where I don't have all of the answers straight up. And this will like with Hum, this happens on kind of like a day-to-day basis, because the things that we're working on right now, we're doing a lot of fairly in-depth software development work. So I'll be, and obviously I didn't go to uni and didn't learn any of that to start with. So I will have to learn something or pick something up really quickly. And then one day I have to learn it. And then the next day we're actually integrating it into the products that we're making. And then having that, the small moment of, I'll tell the guys, I'll say, like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't think I'll give me maybe like a couple of weeks, because I don't think I can do this just yet. Because I think I need to learn more and understand it, and then kind of like exceeding my own expectations of myself. And not that I'll set them low or anything, or try and, you know, be like, oh yeah, I'm patting myself on the back just for doing a day's work or anything.
Something off,
but I have been finding that really motivating, that the speed at which that I've been learning things, and then being able to go and use that and go and share them back to other people has been something that is kind of driving me forwards. And then it just is a bit of a cycle, a bit of a feedback loop of, okay, well, like, we just did this, and now there's something new, and now I've got to go and learn and understand something different, and then keep going and keep going, keep going.
Whoa.
Putting all of everything together.
Yeah,
and just
for sure.
Then throwing it forward.
For sure.
Like, what's next? I don't know.
Yeah.
Gee, yeah. How do you? So obviously, you're daily facing like problems that you don't know if you have the answers to. How do you stay productive? I guess. Are you looking at the like significant deadlines and things in your work, and you've got other sort of investor interest and other factors going on? How do you stay productive and on track when you're looking at problems and you're like, I can't even see a solution, I can't even see a process yet?
For sure.
Do you have a certain framework or methodology that you normally always go to when you're in those sort of situations? Or
I think it's something that I will say that especially the last year that we definitely have struggled with, being able to, the big problem that we're trying to solve right now and that we're facing is that we're building products for a particular group of people, these users. So we're building them for eSports gamers. We need to make sure that we can spend as much time as we like building things and making things, and we can impose deadlines on ourselves, and also we have deadlines from other people. And you're right, like money is a huge thing about like when the company runs out of money, because we're funded through private investment, then we can't pay ourselves and we have to stop doing this and find other work instead. So there's always, I think more than like deadlines, it's always just like a constant pressure on, and like you'll look at the budgets and you look at the forecasts and the runways, and it's like, okay, cool. We have, I think the current thing right now is we have until February, and then it's like we need to have something by February or that's it. So there's always that looming in the background. But you can take that as, oh, you know, this is just so stressful that I can't deal with it, or you can take that as a bit of a challenge and say, okay, well, like we have money to play with, and we've got a few months now to go and make stuff. But the problem still remains on, okay, well, you could go and develop all of these technologies, and who's going to pay for it and who's going to buy it, and is it valuable to these esports gamers, and what things in particular make it valuable to them? Is it the fact that they can integrate it into their training routine, and that's something that like helps them to regulate their training and helps them understand how their brain works so that they can like use it in a whole week? Or is it something that is going to just help them in that one moment, and how does that relate back into the technology? All these kind of like the problems that a lot of startups face, I think, is just being able to determine the fit of your product to the people that are going to buy it. Our current strategy and way that we're trying to solve this is that we work in blocks of 1 week or 2 weeks. So we really take down the amount of time that we'll spend working on a problem or working on the product before we kind of look back on it, and we'll show it to gamers and we'll show it to coaches. So we, by reducing the amount of time that we get on that feedback loop of talking to users and people who would potentially be customers and be buying the product, we've, I think, been finding that we're going more in the right direction. It's hard to say though. Every day is a different challenge.
Yeah. Whoa. Putting a little bit more of my business hat on now. I know you guys have done like innovative pitch nights and things like that, where you've raised some investment. But where have your efforts been most significant in terms of trying to raise investment, and, you know, sort of to what kind of degree has that been successful and things like that? Could you elaborate on that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So, it's been a pretty good ride so far, I think. And also I'm fortunate in that I don't deal day to day with that kind of work. We've got the CEO of the company, Ian, that's basically been his sole responsibility is kind of like finding the money, and managing the people that are investing in the company. So it's good having somebody who only focuses on that, because I think for the rest of the team, we then focus on actually creating these products. To the stage now, the people who've been investing in the company, the accelerator program that we went through in Perth called Muru-D, that came with some Muru-D +8, that came with some investment. We also took a little bit of money from the Australian government through a grant program that we applied for. And just now we are closing a private round of investment. We're just calling it like a pre-seed round. And the people who've been investing in that round of money have been predominantly, we call them angel investors. So they're just wealthy individuals who have an interest in the space, or looking to just diversify their investments and invest in something which is riskier. So because our company is obviously a lot less likely to guarantee a return on the money that they'll give us than investing in property or shares or something like that. But with startups, what they'll see is you have maybe only like a 5% chance that you'll see money back. But then if you do, then it'll be maybe like 10 times what they put in, because the valuation of the company will go up a lot. So it's been that. And then also with a couple of venture capital funds here in Australia.
Larson Ventures was one of them?
That's right.
Okay.
And Andrew Larson is one of our advisors, and he's been great, actually. He's been a lot of help for us.
So when you're talking about venture capitalist, because you're getting the direct experience, are you guys cautious of who you're sort of dealing with? Because on one hand, you obviously welcome the investment, but on the other hand, you can get some venture capitalists that come in and put an investment and then believe that they have some kind of, you know, decision-making capacities and start sort of taking over and things.
For sure.
Have you experienced that at all? Or has it been pretty, this Andrew Larson guy sounds pretty good.
Yeah, so. He's been really great for us. And I think that he sees the vision of the company. And in fact, all of the advisors that we currently have are really bought in and can understand where we're at and where we want to go, and they also have really great ideas about how they can help and use their time and use their network to help us get to where we want to be.
Yeah, wow.
So we are definitely cautious of that when it comes to differences in vision between somebody they're investing in your company, and especially if they're getting seats on your board, or if they are actually getting some voting power and a bit of a say in what happens. That we kind of do a bit of interviewing of them, or that we look into them and look at, I don't know, what the companies that they're investing in right now and what their network is like. One of the questions that we've been asking, and granted, like this, I think that any advice that I give here is just based on, our small amount of experience. And I wouldn't say that we've had a huge success yet with the company. Like we're taking stepping stones in a good direction, I think. But this is only just coming from like the last year. But we've been, whenever we've had conversations with venture capital funds, one of the first the questions that we'll always be asking are along the lines of like, how would you be able to help us other than just giving us money? Or like, what would you be able to would you be able to help with like your network, or providing some introductions to maybe companies that we could learn from that are in a similar type of space? I think we've got some fairly good data out of asking those kinds of questions. In that maybe, so if we're looking at like hardware and making wearables, that maybe they have some partnerships with manufacturing facilities perhaps, and then that could be something which means that it seems that there's a lot of alignment with where we want to go and what they want to get out of us.
That speeds up the process a whole lot more.
For sure.
Yeah.
Shouts out to all the investors out there.
Yeah. It's very interesting for me because it sort of aligns with my studies, and so to be able to talk to someone who's had that experience, actually sat across the table from people from venture capital funds and things is super interesting. And just how you deal with them and stuff. So
yeah, definitely. I think that it always, like, I've only been in on a few of those kind of conversations, and I got to give it to the other guys that Ian and Ahmed in the company, who and Tim as well, the other co-founders who deal a lot more with that, because it, like, being asked questions off the top of your head and having to go back and forth and basically just defend your pitch and tell them why that they should be giving you 50,000, 100,000, million, however much money that like that, and why that this is going to be so successful is something that I think is really challenging and a really big, like a skill that you have to have a successful startup. Yeah.
Do you ever walk out of those conversations with like a more refined idea of what you guys are doing because you've been pushed by some external party to sort of really, they've asked questions that you might not have asked yourself, and you sort of...
Yeah. I think that's something that I personally think is really valuable, is trying to put yourself in those kind of situations as much as you can and have because you don't want to have people, you don't want to spend time with people that are just telling you how great your idea or how great your company is, and people who aren't like, I mean, obviously that's motivating and that's great to hear. But when you're sitting with across the table from somebody who says, this is 5 reasons why I'm not going to invest in your company because of this and because of this and because of this, it's really, really useful to use that as constructive feedback and actually make changes or try to answer those questions, or like come back and say, okay, that was a really, really good point, and we're taking that, and because of that we're going to change something.
Yeah. Wow.
That sounds like a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Instead of being defensive.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Oh, fuck that. We're the best. We're the shit.
In some respects, in business exchanges like that, you have to really let go of your ego. Like you have to, it's your idea, it's your baby, but you got to be open to criticism.
For sure.
Take that on board. It's
I think very good. One of the best things about the group of the people that we have working together with Hum is that we're always so keen to learn, and we're always so keen to learn from everyone else. So we're all pretty young as a team, and this is all our first startup that we've kind of like, we've had some projects and stuff before. Obviously, like I've done, like Summit was just kind of like a bit of a passion thing on the side, and the other guys have had similar things. This is all our first time that we've gone like 100% all in on this company, try to make it work. So we definitely think it's because of that inexperience that we like very open and receptive to advice and to criticism, and looking at people who have like gone on similar types of journeys and have had anything which they can try and offer us, and how we can learn from them.
So amongst the 4 founders, including yourself, you guys have quite a diverse experience in sort of entrepreneurial pursuits, but also you guys have a very multidisciplinary kind of variation, you know.
For sure.
So is it Tim? He's a neuroscientist. Is that?
Yeah. So Tim's a doctor who has done some research. So a lot of the science background and really like the core technological work on the product, or the focus on that and the vision, is coming from Tim. So he was doing some neuroscience research in brain stimulation while he was at medical school, while he was at uni.
Yeah. Wow.
And then there's Ahmed, who his background in engineering and finance, was building race cars while he was at university, leading a team there, and done a little bit of work in like finance and banking. And then Ian with a background in law and physics. And he's done a couple of small businesses and been very involved as well in music stuff and starting that over. And starting that up. That's actually how I met Ian to start with. So he started or made the university club doing the DJ stuff really big at his uni. And then I was basically taking that and then going and doing that over at Curtin.
Yeah, and he's very outgoing. Like, he's not afraid to get in a room with someone and
absolutely,
and you know,
that's why we make him talk to the investors and stuff.
So he's like the guy in your tutorial group that you send up in the front to talk about your project.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everyone's like,
Hey, go do it.
I have anxiety.
Awesome, man. Yeah, diverse backgrounds. Wow, this has been really awesome. So if people want to find more about HUMMTech and what's going on, where can they look? Where can they find you?
So they can find us on Facebook and Instagram and all social media. Just search up HUMMTech. It's HUMM, 2 M's. And you can go to www.hum.tech online, and there's a email sign up form. And we're hoping to, we've got some really exciting things happening, I think, over the next few months for us. And we'll be trying to keep everybody updated over email. Yeah,
great. Awesome. So get onto it, people. Check it out. Be a part of the experience. It's very exciting.
And follow us on Instagram as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also follow us.
Yeah.
It's spelled HUMM. I mean, Layman's podcast. It'll be right there.
What's the slogan for HUMMTech as well?
The slogan and the mantra that we've been going by, it's on the back of our, we have these kind of startup t-shirts that they're bright blue, and they've got our logo on the front. On the back of them, they've got the word "Think Better."
Think better.
So that's really what drives us every single day. And so it's from the big picture and the big vision and learning and everything, and also even just like trying to make people who are playing the eSports games win more, think better.
Great.
Don't think harder, think better.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, great. So huge admirer of what you're doing. I think it's exciting, and really appreciative that you came on today and had a chat with us. So
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Great.
That's all right.
Cheers.
Sweet.